Coming up on All About Android, it's me, Jason Howell, Ron Richards, and our guest, Hayato Huseman from Android Central. We've got a ton of Samsung hands-on hardware, including the Z Fold 2, which I have right here. We've also got hands-on with the Galaxy S20 Fan Edition and the Galaxy Tab S7 Plus. And that's just part of the show. We've also got big changes coming to the Play Store for developers, looking toward tomorrow's Google Pixel and hardware event, your email, and more next on All About Android. All About Android is brought to you from LastPass Studios. You're focused on security, but are your employees? LastPass can ensure that they are by making access and authentication seamless, whether employees are working in the office or remotely. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is Twit.
This episode of All About Android is brought to you by IT Pro TV. Get the best well-rounded IT education from the experts. Visit itpro.tv/allaboutandroid for an additional 30% off all consumer subscriptions for the lifetime of your active subscription. Use code AAA30 at checkout. And by MySudo. Life is better without spam, ads based on activity, hacked information, or the risk of identity theft. Take back control of your privacy with MySudo. Download the MySudo app today from the App Store or Google Play. Go to mysudo.com/twit to learn more. Hello and welcome to All About Android, episode 492, recorded on Tuesday, September 29th, 2020, your weekly source for latest news, hardware, and apps normally, although not today, for the Android faithful. I'm Jason Howell.
And I'm Ron Richards, normally today.
We just don't have any app news in the episode today. That's all I meant.
We have a lot of hardware, though, which is a bummer that Flo is taking the week off, and we're going to miss because she's missing out on a ton of great hardware. But she'll be back next week. So yeah,
that's right. She will be back next week, and we will miss you while you're gone, Flo. In Flo's place, we have, for the first time on this show, anyways, Hayato Huseman from Android Central. How you doing, man? It's good to see you here.
I'm good. It's good to be on. Appreciate the invite onto here.
Absolutely. We had you on, Micah Sargent and I had you on Tech News Weekly, I don't know, weeks ago at this point.
I think too.
Psyched to get you on. And I think when we had you on Tech News Weekly, it was because you were rounding out, if I'm not mistaken, your review and your thoughts on the Galaxy Z Fold 2, which I happen to have right here, 24 hours in on it. So we're definitely going to be talking about this, but you don't have one in your possession anymore, right?
I don't. I'm very jealous because I miss that thing more than any other device I've reviewed lately.
Wow. Well, at least you got to touch one. I'm jealous. I haven't even held one yet, so I'm the one here who's never even got to experience, and I'm the one who loves flip phones.
Yeah, but yes, I was going to say, Ron. I told you in pre-show, like this is a phone that has Ron written all over it. It really is.
I should caveat, I don't love flip phones. I'm not dying for a StarTAC. I just love foldables. Although I guess the new StarTAC is a foldable flip phone as well too. So
yeah.
So Hayato, thank you so much for sacrificing your evening for us, or at least an hour and a half-ish for us anyways, to talk all about Android. Burke, I hope you're ready because it's time for some news before we get to the hardware.
I'd like you all to know my scriptwriter is becoming very lazy. He's about to have a baby. Here's Android news.
I just keep hearing excuses from the Android news department, and I don't hear solutions, and I don't hear intros to the Android news, and so I'm disappointed. Baby or not, come on, man.
I think Burke is just, saying he's got a team that's letting him down when it comes to having funny things to say for the Android news bumper. But honestly, like, I think when you're real and when you're authentic, like you just were, Burke, that's the best news bumper.
Word up.
Best of them all.
Yeah.
Word up. All right, Ron, you got the first one.
In some startling news, all right, I did a double take when I saw this. Google has confirmed that it plans to make some changes to the Google Play Store in 2021, and there's going to be some big changes, folks. I hope you're all sitting down. First, by September 2021, all apps on the Play Store will be required to use Google's billing system. Google says that 97% of apps that sell digital goods already do this. Google gets a 30% cut through the system, as they have up until now. Services like Netflix and Spotify have bypassed this by asking for a credit card payment directly. They would be required to transition over once this switch happens. And given everything that's happened with Epic Games and Fortnite and Apple and all this sort of stuff, this is a direction I did not expect them to go in. But then there's another piece of this. Google said that Android 12 will make things easier for third-party app stores. It's devising a revised system that allows for the install of third-party app stores without compromising the security of the system. So on one hand, they're going to make everyone they're going to make all 100% of apps use the Google payment system so they can get their 30% cut. But on the other hand, they're going to say, we're going to make it easier for third-party app stores to not use our system. So this kind of seems like one hand washing the other, I don't know, one hand doing one thing, the other hand doing the other thing. I don't know. What do you guys think of this? Was this a surprise to you, Hayato, or what do you think?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I think from a consumer standpoint, I like this move because, it just means that there's only one place to have to put my credit card info. If something goes wrong, like my info gets stolen somehow, there's only one person to blame or one company to blame. And it just makes the whole checkout process a little easier. But of course, from a developer standpoint, like you said, with everything going on with Epic lately, it sort of raises questions as to, I guess, whether this is okay, whether this is ethical on Google's part. But I think opening things up to other app stores will, I guess, help a little bit in that regard.
Is this opening the door for GetJar to make a resurgence?
Oh, man. Man, is GetJar still around? I'm curious. GetJar.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, GetJar's still around. GetJar.com.
Yeah,
independent mobile phone app store founded in 2004. So before Android. Yeah, I suppose so. Like, I'm curious. Like, Google isn't giving any specific information as far as how Android 12 is going to allow for this easier. But both of these announcements really feel, whether Google would say it or not, feel kind of tailor-made to the moment at which they're being sued by Epic Games for, under these accusations that they're incredibly unfair to third-party stores and that they require too much payment, too much of a piece of the payment that's happening. I understand what you're saying, Ron, as far as like feeling almost like they're doing two things that might seem to go counter to each other. At the same time, like, the majority of Android apps, at least, in places like the US, are going to be going through the Play Store, and the money changing hands inside the apps through Google services has benefit. And so, is it worth 30% cut? I don't know, but that seems to be kind of the standard between what Apple's doing and what Google's doing. Whether that that means it's right, I guess that's another question. I'm sure there are a lot of developers would say that's simply too much. But also on the flip side of that, this is Android, and it is, I'm going to put it in air quotes, open. It's opener than other platforms, and so it makes sense that Google would still want to say, hey, it's still okay for you to have third-party app stores that do things differently from what we do. But if you're going through ours, which the majority of people are going to, then you got to pay us for it.
It's also interesting that 97% of the apps are using it, which makes sense. But like in that 3%, you've got Netflix and Spotify, who are probably like I'm less interested in the percentage of apps that are using the Google payment system versus the percentage of revenue that is not using the Google system. Right. So if you imagine everybody who it's probably safe to say that lots and lots of people have Netflix accounts, and who else is going to sign up for it in 2021? But, people are always coming on board to platforms and things like that.
For sure.
If you take the amount of signups on Android that Netflix get that they're currently not paying in and then now pay in, that's a pretty decent revenue stream for Google. And it might be one that companies like Netflix and Spotify don't want to lose. So I wonder if they're opening the door to another conflict similar to what's happened with Epic.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure what we'll find out on the opposite side of that. I'm also not clear. Obviously, no one is, as far as what's going to happen with this lawsuit by Epic if it's going to, force any changes. This could just be Google saying, hey, it's okay. We're not doing this big thing. Like we're making changes. We're progressing. You don't need to force change on us. It's all right. We got this. Not to mention Google is under, the crosshairs in a whole lot of other ways, antitrust and all this other kind of big tech scrutiny happening with Google right now. So any way that they can kind of avoid the crosshairs getting bigger, I think they're going to want to do that. But is this the first hint of what we're going to see in Android 12, or is this Google saying, oh, we better put that on there? Let's just mention that it's going to be there, and then it will be, and then let's cross our fingers that it's actually good when it finally makes it in Android 12. Yep. Could be one of the first things that we've heard of Android 12. So yeah. I guess we'll find out where that all leads and how developers feel. I'm curious to know how developers do feel about the 30% cut at this point. It's been so long that's just been the way that it is. Should that change? I don't know. What do you think, Hayato? Do you think it's time? Like there's enough kind of pushback on this? These companies are making enough money. Like 30% just seems unreasonable at this stage, or do you think it's fair?
I mean, I'm sure developers would love to pay a lower cut, of course, but I don't know. I mean, Google, it's sort of weird to see Google doubling down on this when everybody is complaining about it. I mean, it to me it feels more like an Apple move, where I mean, I guess it's no longer their slogan, but Google's always had this whole don't be evil kind of mantra, and I wouldn't necessarily call a 30% cut evil, but it's definitely aggressive if you're, especially if you're sort of a smaller developer, if you're just a one-man team or something. I mean, that's a lot of money taken out.
Yeah.
So I would love to see them sort of reduce that maybe to 20, even 25%. Just anything would be at least just a nice gesture. But I don't know how likely that really is at this point.
Yeah, and actually, now that I think about it, lowering it, like when I think about development incentive for iOS, the incentive is that there's a lot, or the perception of the incentive is that there's a lot of people on iOS that are willing to spend money on apps, and therefore developers over on the iOS side are able to make a good living, and people have long said that, well, that's just not the case on Android. I wonder if limiting or reducing that amount ends up bringing more developers into the fold because they stand to make more just from a pure cut perspective.
I think that's optimistic at best. I think that I mean given how we have depleted the value of in-app purchase transactions.
Yeah, true.
Like we literally, I mean, Jason, we've been reviewing apps for close to 10 years now, and how many times do we find a really good app and we're like, oh yeah, and to unlock this it's $2.99, and the chat room's like, nope, not paying that, and like, and while we always say support your devs, and I try to pay whenever we can and stuff like that, Apple has created an environment that has devalued apps as a revenue stream, right? It's just people just don't want to spend the money, and they spend even less on the Android platform. So I don't think changing the percentage isn't going to matter. And also it's tough because we say do no evil and Google's old mantra and that sort of thing, but like making money we're in a capitalistic society, and that's the whole point of it, right? And so they're working to provide this operating system for apps to exist on. It's like the assumption that you can get all the services they provide for free seems kind of silly in this, and when you think about it. So 30%, 30% is a lot. I mean, it was so much money that Amazon figured a way around it, but they're gonna, the big corporations like Amazon and maybe Netflix and maybe Spotify are gonna figure out ways to work around it. But the independent developer, they have no other recourse; they have to do it, right? So it's a little bit of a extortion shakedown kind of thing, but also it's the cost of doing business. So it's tough.
And I've never, I'm not a developer by any means, but from a developer perspective, as far as I would assume, it seems like you're paying the same 30% cut whether you're making an app for Android or iOS, but it seems like there's more work involved with making an Android app, just because if you make an iPhone app, there's only a handful of devices and a handful of screen sizes that you have to work around. Where with Android, I mean, Google does what it can to make to make its apps flexible and able to scale well to different form factors. But especially with foldables coming out these days and all sorts of different aspect ratios to work around, it seems like it's got to be a lot more work for the same kind of cut.
I was just gonna you were going right in the same direction as me. I was gonna mention like how some apps on the Z Fold 2 just don't scale very, very well. So it's still totally an issue, totally a problem. And then when you're talking about multiple devices, it's a perfect segue into this next story, which there's not a whole lot to this. I just think it's kind of neat that it's possible. An XDA developer, PH Hewson, I don't know how to say that person, tweaked the Android 11.
Please let that guy adopt that pronunciation of his name from now on.
Person. Sorry, person. But he or she tweaked the Android 11 generic system image to address fixes for a number of devices. Ultimately ended up creating a GSI, a generic system image, by the way, that should boot on any Project Treble equipped device. It's Android 8 and up. They tested it, successfully booted on 22 old devices. So, just a couple, OnePlus 6, the Galaxy S9 Plus, the Moto E5, a bunch more newer and older ones just to see. And to kind of peel the layer back a little bit, the GSI is essentially, from my understanding, required for Treble compliance. A GSI essentially is a way of taking the core system, right? Because Treble, what it does is it breaks out the core system away from kind of the vendor modified software and hardware portions of the OS, so that they can be updated independent of each other and managed independently of each other. So think of the GSI as kind of like a baseline operating system before all that vendor stuff gets piled on. And then when you can take that and apply that one image to 22 devices in this case, that's just something that didn't used to be possible on Android. You couldn't just take one image and apply it to a number of different devices and have it actually work. There's so much individual stuff tied to each individual device, of which there are too many to count. And just the idea that they could do this and counting. It's not just 22 and done, like 22 and more. That's just neat that we're there. I don't know what it necessarily solves or proves, other than the fact that maybe Project Treble and mainline, these efforts to decouple the OS from the software layer or from the hardware layer and everything in between is actually seeing progress and actually working. I think it's neat that it can be done.
Yeah, I mean, it's especially with Project Treble kind of, I think it rolled out in Android 8.0 Oreo, and in subsequent versions they kind of built onto it, and they sort of worked around it to make it easier for developers and manufacturers in the future to update their phones more quickly. But I guess the downside of that was the original Project Treble phones on Android 8.0 got kind of left in the dust, and it sort of defeated the purpose of Treble. So it's, I mean, I'm definitely happy to see this kind of stuff just for anybody that's still running an older device like one of these, because they're not even that old. The S9 came out 2 years ago. Right.
My how quickly we move on, and all the manufacturers move on and everything. It's getting better. I mean, Samsung has made that 3-year commitment, or the 3 major revision commitment. Hopefully we'll see more of that. So there'd be a little bit more dedication to making it so that a 2-year-old device doesn't feel so ancient from a software perspective. But we're beat down at this point. We've been on Android so long, we're just used to it. Used to being beat down by those kinds of hurdles. But anyways, I think it's neat. And of course, it's an XDA developer. So much cool stuff always happening over on XDA. So I'll have to call it out. Good work, y'all. Keep it up. All right, Ron, you got the ad.
Yes, so we want to take a pause in the programming to thank our first sponsor. And this episode of All About Android is brought to you by IT Pro TV. And listen, you need all forms of training when entering a new field, and IT Pro TV makes sure that you'll have it all when learning IT. Their instructors make learning IT entertaining. IT Pro TV provides you with virtual labs, so you have the ability to try out the skills you've learned. You won't have to purchase expensive hardware or deal with setup. You can run your virtual machine with multiple instances of Windows Server and desktop clients on your OS X, Linux, iOS device, and of course your Windows platform. IT Pro TV gives you the opportunity to truly be ready for your IT certification tests with their practice tests. You can get ready for exam questions covering Microsoft, CompTIA, EC Council, PMI, and many more. And with IT Pro TV, you have the opportunity to supplement your education with webinars featuring hot topics in the tech world, as well as events and podcasts. Check out their podcast, Technado, with Don Pizzette, featuring industry guests and IT news recaps. With over 5,800 hours of IT training, IT Pro TV is the best place to go for getting started or expanding your IT career. You can earn certificates in A+, CCNP, and so many more, including CompTIA. IT Pro TV is also the official video training partner for CompTIA and has 12 CompTIA on-demand courses. Sign up for a premium membership and let an expert guide you with setting goals and implementing an IT training program to help you reach them. And mark your calendars for October 1st. That's this Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific time for a special online panel discussion sponsored by IT Pro TV with our own Leo Laporte, Amy Webb, Steve Gibson, and IT Pro TV co-founder Don Pizzette. The topic is what the new normal will look like after COVID-19 from an enterprise IT perspective. So invest in yourself and your future with IT Pro TV. Go to itpro.tv/allaboutandroid and use code AAA30 to receive 30% off all consumer subscriptions. That's itpro.tv/allaboutandroid and use code AAA30 for an additional 30% off for the lifetime of your active subscription. IT Pro TV. Build or expand your IT career and enjoy the journey. I know I will. Thanks, IT Pro TV.
Thank you, IT Pro TV.
Yeah, let's get on with some hardware.
I didn't want to step on your hardware throw. It's okay, Burke's got us twice.
It's such good music. It's worth it. Let's do it again.
Sorry, hold on a second. We're grabbing somebody.
I think Mark is losing control.
Button on replay. Okay.
You gotta love a good loop button.
Okay, here we go. We'll have a nice freshie. And it's going to Jason, right?
You don't need to. Oh. That was great. I'm happy. I think 3 in a row it's worthy because we've got 3 things in the hardware block.
Fair enough.
So it's one hardware bumper for every hardware thing. We got a lot of hands-on to do right about now. Let's start with the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 2. Let's see here. I've got my little system over here so I can go ahead and pull it up here. So Leo has bought the Z Fold 2 not very long ago, just last week. And he gave it a spin for a few days. Here, let me get into the unlock state. Gave it a spin for a few days and then said, hey, Jason, why don't you take it, show it off on All About Android, and review it, and then I want it back. And I understand because this is a nice device, I have to say. I mean, obviously the styling is very similar to what I've already seen with the Note 20 family. It's just right there, styled almost identically as far as that's concerned. But I mean, man, the build quality, the quality of the unfold, like the hinge. I realize it's really apparent here, this crease down the middle. And this was one of my main concerns, or has been one of my main concerns with the foldables, is like how bad is that going to distract me? Because that seems like the perfect thing to like be like a deal breaker for me, as petty as that may sound, just like having to like deal with a crease and, does it get worse over time and everything. But I can say, I've only had this for 24 hours and it really has not bugged me at all. Like I've gotten over it. I've gotten over the crease thing. But I've had a lot of fun with this in a short amount of time. I'm going to be doing a full review of it. I'm very curious to know, Hayato, and actually I know because we've talked with you about this before on Tech News Weekly, but you spent a couple of weeks with the Z Fold 2. You published a full review of this. What do you think? If you had to go back in time and remember what it was like to own the Z Fold 2, if only for a couple of weeks, where did you land on this?
I would love to go back to that and just have it for even just another week. I don't know. It's It was one of my favorite devices just because it's so different without having the compromises of so many new form factors. I guess they just kind of got that out of the way last year with the original Fold. It really feels like they fixed pretty much everything that we all complained about with the first Fold, and the hardware is just incredibly well done, very, very solid. The hinge feels fantastic, as I'm sure you're experiencing right now. Everything about the Fold 2 just felt like this is, sort of that future of foldable tech that they kept on talking about. It's been realized, it's right here. I miss it all the time. I've been kind of going back and forth and using the Galaxy Z Flip ever since I had to send the Fold 2 back, and it's nice. And you can definitely see that the Flip inspired a lot of the hardware design of the Fold 2, but it's not quite the same, being able to fold sort of a normal sized phone down into something smaller versus having the Fold and being able to just have this gigantic screen that just, folds into something that fits in your pocket and sort of works like a normal phone at that point.
Yeah.
So I would like to note for a moment that he said that the future of foldable phones is here, and that was not me who said it. As the household poster boy for folding technology and phones. So
Yes.
And just hearing that both of you speak so effusively about this phone has got me even more like I'm not a Samsung guy, and this has got me going, oh well, maybe I could go over for this.
Yeah,
I'm not typically. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it definitely has the Samsung design language on the inside. So you got to be okay with that. But it works for that, right? Like you've got this little slide out area. Let's see here. If I pulled, YouTube out to full screen, right? And then I could go, let's see here. Let's pull out news and maybe we can drop it up there. So now I've got my YouTube. No, we'll dismiss that. I've got YouTube down here if I want. I've got that up there. I can go ahead and swipe out again and we'll go ahead and put that there. So now I've got Chrome. I've got, and I mean, it's obviously formatting a little strangely. It depends on the apps that you're using and all that. But it's just neat from a multitasking perspective, what you can actually pull off. Now, I could even go 4 actually. What do I want to pull out? Let's do another Chrome window. Oh, no, okay. So maybe, so I could do picture in picture. I'm not going to do it because it's messages, but, and I could have a picture in picture on top, which is just nutso, really, when you think about it. Whoever needs all of that multitasking going on one screen. But the fact that you can, in a device that really does fold up, to be sure a little thicker than we're used to, but not so thick that you can't consider it portable. You know what I mean? It is way thicker.
That's my question for you, Jason. What is the Pocket feel?
It's a big device.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely, I still have that kind of like uncertainty of like, holy cow, I better put this in the right pocket. Otherwise, if it slips out, I'm going to like kill this device. And I do not want to kill this device. Like it still feels, large for sure. I want to make sure that when I'm using it like this, my hands are firmly gripping the device so it doesn't fall out of my hands and destroy itself. And I mean, sure, it can fit in a pocket, but yes, it's a large device. So it's, you got to find the right pocket, I suppose. I don't know. Maybe it's a trade-off that you are okay with when you get technology that folds out into a tablet.
I've been, especially since I switched back to the Z Flip for a little bit, I was experiencing this sort of issue where I did have complaints about how thick the Fold 2 felt in my pocket. But I also have really deep pockets, so it's a pretty tall phone, but it still fit all the way into my pocket just fine. Once I switched over to the Z Flip, because it just gets shorter when you fold it, I actually found that to be a nuisance in a different way, because then it's you slip it into your pocket. It's relatively thin still, even when it's folded shut, but then it's so short, it's so small that like you have to kind of dig into your pocket to find it. It's a bit of a hassle. So I kind of still enjoy. I would love for the Fold to be a little thinner, but I kind of enjoy that it's not super tiny.
Yeah. So yes, I'm going to be playing around with this device. I'm sure it'll be on next week's episode and a few others before I give it back to to Leo, and I'll be doing a full review of this on Hands on Tech. But
so after you did the review, Leo said you could send it to me to have a couple of weeks with it, right? I mean, he was cool with that.
Oh, did he? Oh, okay.
Yeah. When he was on the show, he said, yeah.
I would say if that's the case, reach out to Leo, touch base with him, and and then let me know. And yeah.
And Leo's reaction is, "Who's this? Who?
What? Cool stuff."
I can't wait to hear your in-depth kind of thoughts on it, Jason. The fact that you're already speaking, kind of positively of it is fascinating as far as I'm concerned. Because you were skeptical of folding devices. You have been,
for sure.
So
for sure, I have been. Yeah.
Well, let's keep the Samsung train rolling. And if there's one device form factor that we're not skeptical about, that we actually wish we saw more of and got to play with more of, and that would be tablets. And the Samsung Galaxy Tab S7 Plus came out. And Hayato, you had some time with it, and you wrote a pretty great review for it over on Android Central. Tell me all about the Galaxy Tab S7 Plus. Is it a good tablet? Is it worth people's money? Is it the future of tablets?
So this one I'm a bit less bullish on than I am with the with the Fold 2. It is a fantastic tablet. So I guess we'll quickly run through some of the features with it. I'm going to try not to hit my microphone. Basically, you've got most of the same specs as some of Samsung's recent phones. So you've got like a Snapdragon 865 Plus, 6 to 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of storage, etc. The point is basically it's just this very, very powerful tablet. You've got a 12.5-inch 120 hertz screen, and the screen just looks gorgeous. It's one of the best screens of any device I've used in recent memory. The trouble, of course, because it's an Android tablet, it starts to come when you need apps. So, if you're just using a tablet for media streaming, maybe Netflix, YouTube, etc., it's totally fine. It's got HDR support. It's quad HD display. It's going to look gorgeous for everything you watch on it. But I do a lot of creative work, from video editing to photo editing and audio production, and none of that, with I guess the exception of photo editing, is really great on an Android tablet. There's no full version of Photoshop like you would get on an iPad. And even Adobe Premiere Rush, which is available on Android, and it's sort of the answer to Android users saying, I wish I had LumaFusion like the iPad. Premiere Rush is a great option, but I wasn't able to download that on the Tab S7 Plus. It doesn't show up on the Play Store. So there's a lot of frustration in terms of I guess sort of pro grade media creation apps. And that's sort of the thing that I would want this for, when you've got this amazing screen and all the great tools like the S Pen and the really nice keyboard accessory. But on the bright side, what I talked a lot about in my review is that it has this DeX interface where you enable it and it basically turns the tablet into a laptop style interface. You get floating windows that you can pin to each side of the screen. You get a taskbar, all this stuff that makes it feel like a Chromebook or any laptop. And the main advantage there is that it lets you sort of run, because you can run windowed apps, you can run the phone versions of certain apps that aren't optimized for a giant screen. And so things like Instagram work a lot better in DeX than they do on sort of the regular tablet view, where it basically just fills the entire screen with one giant Instagram app. DeX really, really helps sort of fix at least the casual Android app issue there. So that's been a big help, I think. As far as whether or not it's worth it, I mean, this is an $850 tablet that, if you want the keyboard, and I think you really need the keyboard, it's going to cost another $230. Plus, if you want to get more storage or get 5G support, that's all going to cost even more, of course. So it becomes this $1,000+ tablet that it's difficult to recommend, I would say, for most people.
And those numbers are close to laptop numbers, right? For powerful laptop numbers. I mean, you can get an affordable laptop, and you can even get an affordable convertible laptop that also functions as a tablet for under $1,000. So yeah, I can see where it gets price prohibitive.
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you had more of those apps like Photoshop and Premiere Rush, it would be a lot easier to recommend, just because then if you just prefer a tablet over a laptop, this is a great option. But without those apps, I mean, really what this is to me is it's a great media streaming device and it's a great gaming device. But you don't have to spend $1,100+ to get those sort of things in other devices.
True.
So it's
really
just a hard sell for I think most types of users.
Well, at the same time, it's nice that there are options in that range for the few people who are willing to spend. Like, I think that reminds me of the conversation around like the Pixelbook and the higher end Chrome OS laptops like the Pixelbook, where they're $1,000 plus. And the majority of people are going to look at that and be like, why would I spend $1,000 on a web browser, or whatever everybody says about Chrome OS. But then there is always that particular few that they're like, no, you know what? My work, like I operate in Chrome OS and I want the best damn device to run Chrome OS. And so I'm willing to drop $1,000 on it. And I could see someone out there appreciating that there's $1,000 tablet that is like the best $1,000 Android tablet. But yeah, by and large, that's probably not most people. And especially considering the fact that tablets and Android have really not been a very magical category combination, not in the same way that iPad and iOS and iPhone have been. Apple has made it a very successful business out of its tablet side of things, and Google has not.
I have to wonder how much of that, and I'm speaking completely from a position of ignorance here, but how much of that is a difference in position between Apple and Google in terms of a developer's resource or incentive. You've got to imagine Apple went to Adobe and incentivized them to create a full version of Photoshop that works on the iPad. Is Google just not doing that to Adobe, right? Are they being the typical kind of Google unapproachable and not proactively reaching out to the companies of the apps that they need in order to make these things become a viable product line? Are they just saying we'll support the operating system, we'll let the OEMs make the devices and hope that people put good apps on it? But could Google get more proactive in terms of soliciting those kind of apps? I think they could.
Yeah, I mean, it's this sort of endless circle, right? Because right now, basically, it's not worth it from Google's perspective to sort of incentivize other companies to make apps, because people don't buy Android tablets. But people don't buy Android tablets because Google doesn't make anybody make good Android apps. So I don't know really, like how you solve that. But I do think like if you're really just married to the idea of an Android tablet, I love Android on a phone at least. If you really just want Android on a tablet, this is easily the best tablet there is. And I think from a hardware perspective, this is as nice, if not nicer to me at least, than any iPad I've ever used. So there's definitely a lot compelling to it. Plus the fact that it even though it's expensive, it is a little bit cheaper than an iPad Pro 12.9, and it comes with the S Pen in the box, so you get a bit of a freebie there. So I mean, if your needs don't go beyond what Android's tablet app ecosystem can offer, then yeah, this is a great pickup. $1,100 is a lot to ask for.
So you just touched on it. That was a question from the chat room. So the pen comes with it, right?
It does.
You do get the pen, but the keyboard is an add-on for a couple hundred other bucks, right?
Yeah, that'll be $230. With the keyboard, you get obviously the keyboard itself, which comes with a trackpad, and then it also comes with a back cover that I think is really, really handy. Even if you don't need the keyboard, you just want to use this as a media device. The back cover is magnetized, and it gives you this almost 360 hinge, so you can prop up the tablet at basically any angle. It's very rigid. I really like the hinge a lot. I don't know if they actually sell that separately without the keyboard for people that don't plan on typing, but it's like I said, I think the keyboard and the back cover sort of bundle is really a must-have for the tablet if you really want to get the most out of it and not just I guess without it, you're basically just using it as a note-taking device, which is great. But for $850, you might as well go the extra mile and get the other accessories that make it more usable.
Might as well spend even more money.
Yeah,
open up that pocketbook. Yeah,
that's right. Well, if Samsung's doing its job right, then that would be the no-brainer decision of anyone thinking about buying one of these. But I guess the question is, do they sell enough of them for it to be worth it? And Samsung always surprises me as far as that's concerned. They might not sell enough from the outside looking in, but they obviously sell enough because they keep making them. So
Sure.
Another Samsung. This is all Samsung hardware hands-on, basically.
It is.
This
It's
episode.
Samsung Week. Samsung Week.
Samsung announced that it is launching a new device, a new phone, the Galaxy S20 Fan Edition, FE. The Samsung Galaxy S20 FE on October 2nd for $699, has a polycarbonate design similar to kind of like the baseline Note 20. And well, again, Hayato, you just got this phone not too long ago, so you've been playing around with it. What do you think?
Yeah, I got it on Friday, and I've been messing with it ever since. It's so if you've ever used the I guess sort of vanilla Note 20, the one with the polycarbonate backing, it's basically exactly the same on this. So I think the knee-jerk reaction for a lot of people is they hear the word plastic and they just think that's going to be a cheap feeling phone. They don't want it. But yes, it is plastic, but it's a very solid, sturdy feeling plastic, just like the Note 20. It doesn't creak when you put pressure on it. It's not flexing. It doesn't feel cheap to me anyway. So I wouldn't really view that as a negative. And in fact, one of the other hardware changes from the other S20 models that I view as a big positive is the flat screen. So there's no curvature on the sides. It's again just like the Note 20. Those are really the two major changes that they've made to bring the cost of this phone down. But I think the best part of this phone is that other than those two factors, this really feels like any other S20. It's got the same specs as the rest of the S20 line. It's got this basically the same cameras. It has the exact same software. It's just a fantastic device. I mean, if you like the S20 or any of the other models like the Plus or the Ultra, you're gonna like the FE, I think. And it's it's retailing for $700, which is already $300 cheaper than the other cheapest S20 model. But right now, like Amazon, Best Buy, B&H, everybody is selling it for already $100 off before it even launches. So right now you can get it for $600. It's a really, really great deal. I mean, if you like the S20 series, there's not much to dislike about this phone.
Not to mention, worth reminding that if you're going from a Samsung to a Samsung, so say you were going to go for this and you have an older device, they do some pretty killer trade-ins to give you good value for your trade-in if you're trading in a Samsung device for a new one. So you could probably get that price a lot lower even. And it's very interesting, because tomorrow morning, we're going to talk about after the upcoming ad, we're going to talk about the Google Pixel hardware event. And as far as I can tell, anyways, based on what we think we know, the price of this is pretty comparable, if not identical, to the price of Google's next flagship, the Pixel 5. And so the comparison between the two is kind of interesting as well. Like I saw an article, of course, it was on Sam Mobile, and they are big time Samsung fans over there. But they were comparing it to the OnePlus and saying this is decimating, the OnePlus market position. I don't know if you could go that far, but what do you think? Like, this has been a big year and a half for kind of mid-range priced phones. Let's say $400 all the way up through $800. There's a lot of competition in that price range, and it's all really good. A lot of it's really good. Like, how do you think this fits in? Like, pretty tailor-made for that category right now compared to everybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly hope it doesn't decimate the OnePlus market spot, because I really like OnePlus phones, but it is a really well-priced device. I mean, you're putting it against the OnePlus 8, the upcoming Pixel 5. It's sort of fitting right in that line of these affordable flagship phones that offer pretty much everything that you would get in a $1,000+ phone. That are, maybe they're missing one feature like a glass or metal back or whatever the case may be. This gives you, again, this basically identical experience to Samsung's $1,000 phones for several $100s less. So, I've used the OnePlus 8. That was my main phone for quite a few months. I'm assuming I'm probably going to be using the Pixel 5 quite a bit in the coming months. And so far, I mean, this I've only had it since Friday, so I think it's been about 4 or 5 days now. But it's really felt like a basically zero compromise device. So for this kind of price, it's really, really aggressive. And I do think companies like Google and OnePlus are going to have to really make their next phones kind of a hit to really compete.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I was going to say the next battleground is the mid-range, but that's the story of this year. Jason, you're talking about we're getting close to the year end. Yeah, that's the story of this year is the emergence of the mid-range as the battleground amongst all these companies. Realizing that these, $1,000 flagship phones, this was happening before the pandemic hit and before, times got tough and people had to watch what they were spending. And I said it for years now is that there's so many more potential customers in the mid-range who can afford a more moderately priced phone. And I just have to laugh at this because it's funny because, to hear, kind of the positive response to this phone, that's great. It's still $700.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is what
it's
like top tier phones used to cost.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a $350 device. It's a $700 device. But even then, so like, can Samsung take this and then make an even cheaper device? That's what I'm kind of curious about. But but it is interesting to see when Samsung comes closer to the mid range where they net out, because the device is, like you said, a no compromise phone, and you are paying for that. I would expect for $700 having no compromises. So
yeah, I mean. I guess I'm thinking sort of optimistically, but I'm hoping what this will do with, say, a company like OnePlus is force them to sort of bring more of their high-end features from, say, the OnePlus 8 Pro to, I guess, maybe the upcoming 8T or some kind of subsequent model. Because really, looking at the OnePlus 8 versus the S20 FE, with Samsung's phone, you're getting things like water resistance, actually like IP certified water resistance that the OnePlus 8 doesn't have. You get wireless charging that the OnePlus 8 doesn't have. And I haven't had a chance to test out the cameras quite yet, but I'm assuming they're going to be very similar to the rest of the S20 lineup, which was very comparable to the OnePlus 8's cameras or even the OnePlus 8 Pros. So, I mean, maybe this will force other manufacturers to really bring their prices back down. But I mean, at the same time, maybe not, because it seems like everybody's doing really well selling these expensive phones. Yeah. We just talked about a $2,000 phone a few minutes ago.
Yep. Indeed. And also, before we move on, I just want to say that like the effectiveness of these new polycarbonate designs, like I feel like there was a time, and I totally fall into this camp as we transitioned into glass front, glass back, and I was wowed and definitely allured into this like glass sandwich design, where I saw plastic design as the kind of the anti. Be like, that's the design that I don't want because that feels cheap and it's just not the same, as not elegant and blah blah blah. And I feel like now we're moving into a moment where, and I don't know if they've just learned a lot about it or if it's new approaches, new techniques with these polycarbonate designs. But now, I mean, a lot of times the plastic, the polycarbonate, actually feels just like the glass and it looks just like it. It's that unibody approach. So they've really come a long way in creating something that still feels elegant, even though it is plastic. And there's a lot of people who have stuck with plastic from the beginning. They've got to be really happy right now, because not only do they get the durability of plastic, they also get an even more elevated kind of design approach the plastic is doing.
Like the return of plastic is definitely not a trend that I expected to see in 2020, but I do like that it's less fragile than glass. And I mean, it seems like it's not just Samsung doing it. I mean, we're expecting, if the rumors are true, it looks like the Pixel 5 might actually have a plastic back too. So I mean, it's becoming more commonplace again. And it's, I mean, you're still not getting like removable backings or anything like that. I don't think that's ever really coming back to the mainstream, but it is weird to see, I guess, this return to it. But I really like these new plastic phones. Maybe I don't know if I prefer them over glass or even aluminum phones, but they feel, I would say, pretty much just as good. I mean, I don't really have any complaints with the hardware on this.
Yeah, agreed. Cool. So everybody should definitely check in on you're going to be doing a review, I imagine, sometime in the next couple of weeks at Android Central.
Yeah, I'm hoping for maybe the end of this week or early next week.
Got it. All right, everybody. Stay tuned for for Hayato's review of the S20 Fan Edition. Let's take a break, thank the sponsor, and then we'll actually get into more hardware. We got to talk about tomorrow's Pixel event, even though we kind of already know everything about it.
I know it's anticlimactic.
We'll remind you, and the next week we'll talk about it actually.
Yeah, I thought we'd had to do more of that this week, but I'm all for Samsung. That was fun. So let's do the ad, and then we'll talk about Google. So.
All right, this episode of All About Android is brought to you by MySudo. Everything you do online increases your digital exhaust. You're just spreading your information everywhere, your personal information across the digital world. It's really easy to do. Your name, phone number, email address, credit card numbers, billing, shipping address, browsing activity, you name it, and a whole lot more. And it's highly sensitive information. It identifies you and the private activities that you are a part of. That leaves you vulnerable for spam, scams, and even worse. So you want privacy for your daily lives, your digital online lives. That's why you need MySudo. With MySudo, you can quickly create different profiles. They call them pseudos. Each one can have a working phone number, email, virtual card, private browser. You give your pseudo profile a purpose. So you can name that purpose. So you might create a pseudo for shopping or for selling or online services, that sort of thing. Now, every time that you talk, you text, email, browse, or pay, you use your pseudo profile that lines up with that. And in doing so, you take back control of the information that you share. So as an example, with the MySudo app, you can create a new pseudo profile with a custom phone number and email address. You name your pseudo for what you plan to use it for, so selling or shopping. When potential buyers or services actually ask you for your contact information, you use your new working pseudo phone number and email address instead of risking the exposure of your personal information. So it's kind of taking the hit for you. You can send and receive calls, texts, emails with contacts from the MySudo app directly. Calls that you receive are clearly designated that they're coming from your selling pseudo, so you can recognize it easily and right away. And you know you're secure with MySudo because there are no login or credentials. MySudo does not require security-prone login or password. Instead, a private key is created that only the user has access to securely on their device. You've got encrypted cloud. All metadata stored on their cloud is encrypted. No one, not even MySudo, can read any user's communication. Only the user holds the unique encryption key. And then, of course, end-to-end encrypted communication. So all your communications with other MySudo users, that's messaging, voice, video, and email, are always encrypted. Only you have access to your data. Of course, Leo Laporte here at Twit highly recommends MySudo. He actually featured it on iOS today along with Micah Sargent, so you know it's an app that you can trust. MySudo is the world's only all-in-one privacy solution, and MySudo has 3 different subscription plans. All plans come with unlimited encrypted communication between MySudo users for messaging, voice, video, and email. Each subscription plan actually comes with a working pseudo profile, a phone number, email address, and more. And depending on the privacy protection that you want, there's Sudo Go, Sudo Pro, and Sudo Max plans that are available that increase the privacy options at every tier. MySudo takes protection of your data seriously. So when you download the app, they won't ask you for an email address or a password or even your contacts to create an account. You quickly access and utilize various privacy tools. MySudo is the only all-in-one privacy app empowering users to take back and control their private and personal information. So whether you've been hacked, tracked, had identity theft, maybe you were scammed, spammed, or you just want to prevent these things from happening, the MySudo app will mitigate the common risks that we all face today. So just download the MySudo app today from the App Store or Google Play. Go to mysudo.com/twit in your browser to learn more. And you can take back and control your personal information with the MySudo app. So go download it today and take a look for yourself. And we thank MySudo for their support of All About Android. No bumper needed, although it's okay, Burke. You played 3 earlier, so we're covered. We've got more hardware, and you got it, Ron.
I was hoping for him to hit the cycle with the 4th time, but but as we mentioned, here it comes.
Here we go.
And there it is. Burke hits for the cycle with hardware.
All right.
So as we mentioned, tomorrow is a big Google event. Tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific. That's 2 p.m. Eastern. For those of you playing at home, Google kind of marketed this by celebrating the launch night in. Many folks on Twitter got a care package from Google with candy, socks, and stuff for the event. I did not get that, Google. So, although I think Flo got it. So, so let's see who's winning in that race. But so basically, this is what we know, or this is what we suspect is going to come through. We pretty much know it's going to come through tomorrow. And actually, someone on Twitter asked me if I could recommend the Pixel 5 or the Pixel 4a 5G. And I was like, man, I got to wait for the event. So this is what we're going to find out. It's the Pixel 5, which is the next Pixel flagship, this running a Snapdragon 765G with 5G, 6-inch 1080p display with 90 hertz refresh, rear fingerprint sensor, no more face unlock, 2 rear cameras, a 12.2 megapixel main and a 16 megapixel ultra wide. As well as the Pixel 4a 5G, which is the same as the Pixel 5, Snapdragon 765G, rear cameras, same front camera, however, 60 hertz display, smaller battery and less RAM, and no IP rating for just $499. And then, of course, the thing I'm waiting for, in addition to the phones, but Chromecast with Google TV, which has also been known as Sabrina. The code name Sabrina. It's going to include a remote, 4K and HDR support. It appeared on Home Depot shelves over the weekend, so people bought them before they were announced, which is just bananas. But continuing the spoiler version of this announcement, and then last but not least, the Nest Audio, which is the latest Google Home replacement. All fabric, smart sound feature for tuning to the room, and it appeared on Walmart shelves ahead of the announcement for $99.99. So Google fall announcement is basically anticlimactic, unless they have some surprise that we're not expecting it. I don't know. Hayato, of this announcement, what are you most excited for, or what do you think will get the most legs, considering that we know everything already?
I mean, I'm looking forward to the Pixel 5, I think, just because Google always does insane things with the cameras on the Pixel line. I think I would be more excited for the 4a 5G, but we already have the 4a. I don't have it, but we've already seen it. We've reviewed it. So the 4a 5G, I feel like is just basically going to be the same thing, but with 5G, which I still don't think most people really need. But the Pixel 5, I'm curious to see what happens with the cameras, how they improve them really, because the Pixel 4 already takes such good photos, especially with this astrophotography mode, that I actually, because I live in the middle of nowhere and there's no light pollution, if you drive like 45 minutes out west, you get to take astrophotography shots all the time if you really want to.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and such good shots with that camera system. Yeah, I think what's interesting about the camera system from what we know on the 5 versus the 4, I can't remember who it was last year from Google who I think at the announcement was talking about the camera system and how with the Pixel 4 they had 2 lenses, right? They have the main that they've used for the past however many years, the 12.2 megapixel one, and then they had a telephoto lens, and they actually kind of talked down again or talked bad about the wide angle, just saying like, hey, we think it's more important to have a telephoto than it is a wide angle. And now we find out that with the Pixel 5, they're actually going to include a wide angle, unless maybe that's incorrect information. But from what we understand, it's a wide angle along with the main. I just think it's so funny how, like, it doesn't take very long for these companies to contradict themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was Mark Lavoie last year, right? Who talked about that?
Go. Yeah.
Because he's the one who really developed the whole camera system. But now, I mean, now that he's not at Google anymore, since he's working with Adobe, maybe that's sort of where the change came from.
Yeah, maybe that was the bridge too far. Someone on the team was like, no, we think wide angle and we're willing to go to the mat on this one. And he's like, well, if you do, I quit. Probably not what happened, but it would make a fun scene. Yeah, I'm interested in the 5 to kind of see. Yeah, I'm still kind of confused, to be honest. The difference between the 5 and the 4a 5G and the labeling of the 2. And then I think I also saw that there's a version of the 4a 5G. There's a rumor anyways that the white version of the 4a 5G won't actually come out until next year. So we've got the 4a 5G coming out next year after the 5 is already, I don't know. It's just like crossing the streams.
how much of it is it's very much crossing the streams and it's confusing. I mean, I think that I think from a marketing and a product perspective, having it be clean and release the 5 and the 5A or whatever is at the same time to get it out the door, if they are so similar, would have been better than releasing a 5G version of the previous version of the phone at the same time as the next version of the phone. It just seems kind of odd. But I mean, is it boiled down that is just like the plastic case versus the glass back? Like, is it come down to like the finishing features of the phone versus the guts? You know, I mean,
I think we're kind of looking at a similar situation as the S20 versus the S20 FE, though, right? Like it's basically just a plastic body and just minor hardware changes and not much else.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think is a bad thing.
The 90 hertz to 60 hertz display, that's a thing. You know, smaller battery, we know that's a thing, right? Less RAM, like these are all things that are chipping away at it. But where does the 4A end and the 5 begin? I guess, Jason, is your question, right?
Well, yeah, and I mean, if you're talking about the FE edition, like. And maybe it's all semantics and it doesn't actually matter. But in marketing, I think it kind of does matter a little bit. But in the case of Samsung's FE edition, it's the FE of the current version of the phone. It's not the FE with the last number when the new, you know what I mean? Like if this is truly like the Lite Pixel 5, then why isn't it the 5 FE or the 5 Lite or whatever you want to call it? It's just weird that they're like coinciding with each other and they kind of seem like they're the same phone, but a little less, but of different families. I don't know. It hurts my brain when I think about it too hard. Maybe it shouldn't.
I guess it's almost like maybe Google should have just skipped the 4 branding, the 4A branding from the beginning, even with the 4A that already released, and just did what like Samsung and OnePlus and other companies have done, where, you know, there was no there was no OnePlus 4. There was no Galaxy Note 6. We skipped just random numbers just to clean up the lineup, and I think they probably could have benefited from doing that.
Yeah. But again, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe, you know, to the consumer, they don't care. They go into the store and they see a Pixel 5 and it's the bigger number and they go, okay, well, I want that one. But then where does that leave the 4A 5G? The poor, lonely 4A 5G.
Jason, you're really rooting for the 4A 5G. It's just I get you like the underdog, and so
I do root for the underdog. Yeah,
it was funny. Someone recently challenged. So I recently purchased the 4A because I was like, it's $350. I'm tired of my OnePlus. Let me switch over to it. And someone's like, oh, you didn't wait for the 5G? And I was like, well, like no, because 5, you know, like. Just no. And B, at that $350 price point, if 5G is enough of a difference maker, I won't think twice about getting the next phone, right? Because I didn't lay out $1,000 for that phone. Again, not to continue to be the champion of the mid range, but that is the nice aspect of a cheaper phone. And if 5G really becomes that much of a difference maker, then I can, you know, reconsider going to the 4A 5G or wait for the 5A, right? So. But,
I mean, do you even have 5G where you guys live? Because where I am, it's pretty spotty, honestly. Like I have it, but it doesn't. The speeds are worse where I live with 5G on Google Fi, which is basically T-Mobile's 5G network. It's worse than just using their LTE.
I'm assuming I have it because I'm in New York City and we just have everything, but I haven't even checked. So I'm checking it right now. So,
we've got it all.
Jason, do you have it? Do you have it in Petaluma or?
Well, let's see here. I'll go ahead and show you. Let's see if my camera can focus. Come on, focus. There it is. Hey, there's 5G. So I got 5G.
According to T-Mobile's coverage check map, I checked my address and it's 5G excellent signal strength. So supposedly,
yeah. I mean, I get 5G here, but anytime I do a speed test of it, it's negligible. Like I've never done a speed test when 5G is lit up and been like, holy cow, that's 5G. That's awesome. It's always like, really? Okay. Is that slower than what I've been getting? I don't even know. It's the same.
I've been to certain parts of Brooklyn, like Greenpoint and a few other spots where we've tested Verizon's 5G network, which uses millimeter wave, and we'll get those, you know, sort of the Twitter post speeds where you get like a 1, maybe 2 gigabit download speeds. but then like you step 5 feet away and just suddenly you're back down to either like 10 megabits or you just have 4G again. So it's like, what's the point? But I've not really experienced.
And I'm like a mile from Greenpoint, so it probably would be similar to where I am right now. So
yeah.
I think you're smart, Ron. I think that makes a lot of sense to just go with a 350 phone. That's a great phone. It's going to do what you need it to do. And if 5G ever becomes the thing that you have to have, I don't think you're going to be hard pressed to find a phone that will support it then at that point. But I think you've got a couple of years. Like it really feels like that we've got a couple of years before 5G even matters.
Yeah.
But yeah. Let's see here. One last phone before we jump into email here. You remember the Royal Flex Pi? Has anyone here ever played around with the Royal Flex Pi? I think it was like
I didn't go hands on with them, but my last CES earlier this year, Royal had like this giant display. They didn't even have a booth. It was this just huge section of the floor where they had built a tree where all of the leaves were Flex Pis, which was just like, I don't know why they did it, but it was definitely,
they're just flexing at that, but they're literally flexing at that point.
Yeah.
That's like a flex. Royal Flex Pi flexes. Well, that's interesting. I would love to see that in person and laugh at it. It was the first foldable to market way back when, and way back when was really not that long ago, like a year and a half ago. And if you remember, it has the display that folds out, not in, so it doesn't fold like a book. The display folds on the outside. Well, now we've got the Royal Flex Pi 2. They've made it official. Just some quick specs here. Snapdragon 865, 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs storage, or 12 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs storage, both with UFS 3.0 storage, so faster. LPDDR5 RAM as well. Folds out with its tech, which they've called the Cicada Wing 3S. So they promise that it's mirror-like smooth and it has no creases. They say after 1.8 million folds, no creases. I'll believe that when I see it. 7.8 inches unfolded panels, and when it's totally unfolded, 7.8 inches, 4:3 ratio, 1440p resolution. And then when it's folded, you have two 5.5-inch screens at 16:9 ratio. I think one's slightly smaller than the other one, but 4 rear-facing cameras available now, starting at around, I don't know if it's $1,450 converted from the price at JD.com, but definitely in the price range of what a lot of the foldables seem to be targeting. And I can't remember the Royal. I feel like the first Flex Pi was less expensive than that. I can't remember exactly, but I feel like it was less expensive. I could be wrong. I don't know. Any excitement about the Royal?
No? I mean, I think the context to remember is that like Royal as a company, I mean, at its core, the company was sort of founded specifically to make flexible displays and to sell them either in their own phones or to other vendors. And it's like, because of that, I kind of trust that at least the foldable aspect of this will be pretty good. But at the same time, the first Flex Pi was pretty easy to make fun of because it had this enormous gap between the screens. It had just like disastrous software. There was a lot wrong with the original. So I don't really know if this one's going to be any good, but I mean, maybe they've ironed out everything that was wrong with the first one, because that's basically what Samsung did. The original Fold maybe wasn't quite as bad as the Flex Pi 1, but it had its problems. Of course, they had to recall it, and now the Fold 2 is basically my favorite phone. So I mean, I don't expect the Flex Pi 2 to suddenly blow me away, but maybe it'll at least be not terrible.
I like that they're trying. I like that there's an option in the marketplace, right? I mean, they improved their hinge like everybody's doing with their second phone. So it seems like they're on pace and they're doing something a little different. I mean, I don't know. Costing under $1,500. These, I've been saying it. These foldable phones, to be realistic, have got to get that price point down. And if the existence of this forces other manufacturers to start bringing their price points down to compete, then great. Then it's serving its purpose. I think it's compelling and it's interesting. But I haven't touched it in person, so I didn't touch the first one either. So who knows?
I think it's a really good point though, because the Fold 2 is just so inaccessible at $2,000. I mean, even $1,500 is still a lot of money, but that's still $500 less. So I mean, it's progress.
Yeah, yeah. We'll know if it's a success if the Escobar family ends up re-releasing their phone, the Escobar Fold 2, based off the Royal FlexPi 2. So they did that with the first one, by the way. I'm sure we talked about it on the show at some point. But we probably didn't spend a whole lot of time on it because it was a weird story. That story is just weirder and weirder every time you dive into the Escobar phone. So anyways, Royal FlexPi 2 coming at you, $1,500. All right. Let's jump into some email. AAA@twit.tv, or you can leave us a voicemail, 347-SHOW-AAA. Ron, you got the first one.
I do. And David writes in, another member of the OnePlus Army, and says, I've recently got the OnePlus 7T. Great phone, except one problem I have. At night, the in-display fingerprint reader is very bright. I've turned off the fingerprint animation, put night mode on, and dimmed the screen fully. It's still so bright. Can't use Face Unlock at night either. It doesn't work. If I disable the fingerprint at night for unlocking with swipe up in the morning, my banking app and other apps that use the fingerprint need to be reset. You can't just toggle fingerprint on and off in the settings. Any ideas or solutions, please help. And I can attest to this as well. I have the OnePlus 7 Pro. I turn Face Unlock because I have the pop-up camera, and I didn't want the pop-up camera to turn on all the time. And the little I have you can't really tell on the camera, but the fingerprint unlock is like this green thing that comes up. And I will say my kids love to play with the fingerprint sensor because they touch it and something happens. And that's a nice kind of tactile response for 21-month-old children. But I have noticed that when one of them, is up very early and gets their hand on my phone, that green light is very bright. So basically that bright light is needed in order to read your fingerprint. So therefore there is no way to turn it down. So unfortunately, David, I would suggest you do what I do and plug your phone in when you go to bed and don't touch the phone anymore until the morning.
Yeah. Problem solved.
Seems use the phone less. There it is.
There you go. There you go. Now it's time to shame you, David. You're using your phone too much. That light that lights up, that's not like, from my understanding anyways, that's not like pixels on the display. That's an extra layer that, like, it's literally a light that shines onto your thumb or your finger in order to pick up the fingerprint. And that's just how it works. So it needs to be that bright in order to do an effective scan. So putting on Do Not Disturb and turning down your display brightness, it's not going to change that. It's not part of the same mechanism, from my understanding. So.
Yeah, we dog a lot on the we dog on Samsung's optical sensor a lot at Android Central, like in all of our reviews of their phones. But that's, I guess, one of the only advantages of it over something like the OnePlus sensor is that it doesn't have to do that because it's an optical sensor. I generally prefer the OnePlus fingerprint sensor, but me too. That's really where the optical sensor, I guess, has its like one benefit.
I will say that this fingerprint sensor has been, I have fallen in love with the in-display fingerprint sensor, and it's been the best one I've used of any phone up to this point. I'm a huge convert to it, and it's one of the things I am going to miss when I do move to the Pixel 4a Which one did I get? The 4A. 4A. Because I realized it's going to have the back dot, kind of pixel thing again. And I've gotten used to this one. And so we'll see how that goes. But I have been impressed with the OnePlus. So, yeah.
See, and I love that rear sensor, though, because you can like swipe down on it to pull your notifications down. That was always one of my favorite features of that, I guess, like 2018 era of phones that all did
that. The gestures. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I like the rear facing one too. If I had to choose between the in display and rear facing, I opt for rear facing. So I'm happy to see that coming in the Pixel 5. If I have to have in display, I opt for the OnePlus approach and not the Samsung approach. But that is a really good point. I had not put those pieces together. That's why it doesn't light up on the Samsung. That totally makes sense now that I hear you say it. But that's like the one advantage of Samsung's approach. The disadvantage is that it's very inaccurate. Like, it just does not work nearly as effectively as it does on the OnePlus.
Yeah.
So, Mark writes in, and forewarning, this is a little bit long, so I'm going to speed through it. And this is about YouTube Music. It says, YouTube Music does not allow accounts for children under the age 13. This means that all the families who have children with accounts supervised through Google Family Link are in for a rude awakening when Google Play Music shuts down and their music accounts disappear. Here's the exact quote from a Google customer service rep. Quote, "At this time, we are not supporting Family Link or supervised member accounts on YouTube Music. This means accounts that you have set under the Family Link kids accounts under 13 can't be transferred to YouTube Music," end quote. He says, "For people who have already invested hundreds of dollars into this ecosystem, including Google Play Music family subscriptions, Google Home Minis in the kids' bedrooms for music, etc., how long until the class action lawsuits get moving? You might think a workaround would be to change the birth date on your child's account to make it look like they're over 13. Well, after more conversations with Google Family Link support, they have confirmed if you change the birth date to make it look like they are 13, Google will deactivate the account permanently with no way to reactivate it."
Jeez.
So that's awesome.
And they have to, right?
They have to. Yes. No, you're right. It's pointing out something that they kind of have to do because of COPPA and all that. But it's just a bummer because like I'm totally in this camp. We have Google Homes all throughout the house. We have our children, listening to music all the time. I don't know. I'll be curious to see once everything is shifted over if this is a deal breaker for them to play music through the Google Homes. I mean, they're able to right now, but it is way more finicky now than it's ever been. And I wonder if that's why. But it's a bummer. Change, man. Change is hard.
Change is hard.
Thank you for writing in, Mark.
By the way, before we read the next one, it is September 29th, and I still have not dealt with any of my Google Music, YouTube Music subscription problems at all.
Oh, boy. Well, you know what I've done? I have officially done the Google takeout and downloaded all my music. So I have my music now.
I need to do that.
I need to do that.
I do have it though. I shouldn't. But you just can't get the stuff you've added to your library, right? Because you didn't buy that.
Right. Oh yeah, you're not getting anything that you added to your library.
Yeah.
No, that'll transition over.
This is what I would like. If someone knows how to get this, I would like to export a list of everything I've added to Google Play from the Google Play Music instance, so that I know what I've added, so I can go back and buy the actual MP3s of those and add them to my local library. That's what I would like. Which I guess is just going under recently. Now I'm on a divergent, but there is a recent additions. You can see like a historical view of what you've added. So anyway.
Yeah, and I should say that there's a service that I have not used yet, but that comes up in this type of discussion called Tune My Music, tunemymusic.com. That transfers playlists and stuff between music services.
Yeah, I don't use playlists as much though. Yeah. Anyway,
I mean, I don't know. They might have that functionality in there. I don't know. I haven't checked it out, but
yeah. Was it Tune My Music?
tunemymusic.com. Yep.
All right. Cool. I'll check it out. All right. But now it is time for our community interaction of the week.
That doesn't even get any music.
How about our email of the week? There it is.
Oh, it's tied to the word email.
This week's email of the week isn't necessarily an email, but rather thank you, Mark, for that. But a post on Twitter, user Barney4 on Twitter, for the user that is having issues receiving calls with Do Not Disturb on, I've attached a screen recording starting with the Do Not Disturb in the settings menu. And you might remember on a previous episode, somebody said they had a hard time receiving call, had a hard time with Do Not Disturb because they were being disturbed, basically. And so essentially, we've got this great video now that shows exactly how you can navigate it. You go to the Do Not Disturb menu, then you choose apps, then select apps, find the phone app, select that, tap on incoming calls, then tap on advanced, and then tap override D&D and make sure that is set to off, which is a bizarre, insane maze to get to that. But that's all you got to do. So just those things. So go back, check out that video. You can watch it there, or you can just listen to what I just said, and it'll explain it to you. So there it is.
Yeah. So overall, the overall point here is that anything, from what I can understand by looking at this, and once I saw this video walkthrough of the process, I was like, oh yeah, okay, duh. Of course, it's tucked away there. The idea is that you could set anything to override D&D, Do Not Disturb mode. mode. And it's possible, and like I don't know if this is going to solve the problem, but if there's a solution to the problem, and the problem, just as a reminder, this is when you're connected to a Bluetooth speaker. Your do not disturb mode is on. You're connected to a Bluetooth speaker. A call comes through. You would expect it to reject it, but instead it comes through anyways. And you're like, why are you doing that? I'm on do not disturb. Only when I'm connected to Bluetooth. If it's going to be anywhere, it's probably going to be in here. So you go to the app, look for that override DND feature, and make sure that it's set to off. And if it is set to off and it's still doing it, I don't know what to tell you, but I thought it was a good clue that Barney had.
So for those of you who want to check out Barney's video, go find me on Twitter. I'm at RonXO, and I've retweeted his tweet so you can see it. He also wrote to Jason and Android Show, so if you search for that, I don't want to give away his username on the broadcast, but so just go to my Twitter and you can find it there. I've retweeted it, and you can watch that video. So
cool,
good stuff.
Thank you, Barney,
our community interaction of the week, which was not an email. Or not, Burke.
Burke stepped away for a moment. All right, good. It's even fun when we have to wait for it. Thank you, Barney. And thank you, Hayato. It's so great to get you on today. I'm really happy that you could join us on this special episode of All About Android. We appreciate your time, man.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me.
You bet. We'd love to have you back sometime. We'll be in touch and bring you back. What do you want people to know? Like, I mean, obviously your work is at androidcentral.com. People want to follow you. Anything that you're working on that we don't already know about? Now's your chance to kind of plug away.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give away too many details just yet because I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, but we are working on over at Android Central. We're working on this big collaborative project that should be going live in the next week or so. Probably, I mean, if you follow the space at all, there's going to be a lot of people that you recognize. So I would just say to look out for that on the Android Central YouTube channel, and we'll all be tweeting about it once it goes live. So I'm not going to tease it much more, but I am pretty excited for this project that we've got coming up.
Nice. Cool. That's exciting.
Yeah.
I'll get people over to check it out. I'm curious. Cool. To thank you again, androidcentral.com for all of your work. Flo is not here, so she cannot plug. Ron, what do you want to talk about?
I'll plug Flo's stuff anyway. Go follow her at That Flow. No, anyway. Jason, real quick note on Tune My Music. It does say you can back up your music library to a file, which is interesting. So I'm going to look into that. Okay. But that said, as I mentioned, I'm on Twitter at RonXO and on Instagram at RonXO. So go check that out. If you want to go check out my pinball startup, go check out Scorbit.io. But today, I want you to head over to ifanboy.com, where I'm on the latest Mediasplode that came out last week, where I'm talking with the guys about the TV and movies we're watching. We talked about Bill and Ted Face the Music. That was our main discussion point. But I did discuss two very cool documentaries you should check out: Class Action Park on HBO Max, which is very amusing, but also High Score on Netflix, which was, if you're into video games and all the stuff, like I'm pretty sure you might be, if you're like me and all of us nerds, very fun historical kind of view at video game history. And it was cool to see a lot of my heroes like Roberta Williams on a documentary, which is pretty cool. So, and bonus points to you if you know who Roberta Williams is. So there it is.
I have been meaning to check that out. I saw it come up on the recommended list, and I haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
Super good.
Thumbs up, sideways, or down for Bill and Ted? I got to give it a thumbs almost down.
It's right in the middle. I mean, it was. I'm glad they did it. Like, it was nice. Like, it wasn't awful. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't great. But I'm not going to hate on it because like it was just innocent. You know, it was ineffectual basically. Yeah. So.
All right, you've convinced me. I could go halfway then on it. I think maybe I was a little overly critical. I mean, I was entertained, I suppose, but it was kind of like, it was fine. There were some eye roll moments. Yeah.
Here's the thing: I wasn't upset that it was only 90 minutes. Let's just say that. So.
Yes, fair enough. Totally agree. Yep. Okay, as for me, Hands on Android, Tech News Weekly. You can just check out the other shows that I do on this network. But probably what you want to know and want to watch immediately or sooner rather than later is tomorrow's coverage of the Google event. Tomorrow being September 30th, 11 a.m. Pacific. I'm going to be on set or virtual set with Leo to walk through the event. And so, yeah, you can check it out live with us and get our running commentary throughout the event. twit.tv/live tomorrow at 11 a.m. Don't forget to wear a mask. You save lives when you do. And thank you so much for watching and listening to this episode of All About Android. This podcast publishes every Tuesday evening. So go to twit.tv/AAA and you can subscribe in the many ways. Oh, and there's Hands on Android, which you should go there too. But twit.tv/AAA for this show and subscribe. And that's it. We will see y'all next week on another episode of All About Android. Bye, everybody.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am Ant Pruitt, host at Twit TV. Got a question for you. Have you gotten tired of how bad your photos are looking every time you post them to Instagram? Better yet, have you gotten yourself a new camera and you can't quite figure out why the images just don't look that good? Well, I have a solution for you. This is my show, Hands on Photography. Each and every Thursday, I sit down and share different tips and tricks that are going to help make you a better photographer and a better post processor. So subscribe today at twit.tv/hop to learn more.